Hey everyone! Today I want to show you guys how you can make your own chip bag covers or wraps. These are your own design to go over a 1 ounce bag of chips, and they're just a cute little party favor, or for me, I like to send them to my son's school for when it's his birthday to give out to his classmates, because you can't really send anything, cupcakes and all that stuff anymore. So I like to send these. They're a lot of fun to make. Now, I just use regular printer paper. A lot of people use glossy brochure paper. I personally feel that these are, 7, 8-year-old kids, and they're just going to rip it up and throw it in the trash anyway, so I don't feel the need to spend the extra money for it. So I just use regular printer paper, but you guys can use whatever you'd like. So you have to make sure, I'm using these cheddar jalapeno crunchy Cheetos, and they are a 1 ounce bag. Because of the print and cut limitation with the Cricut, you have to make sure that you are using a small enough bag. You can go smaller than this, but do not go bigger than 1 ounce. I'll show you guys how to assemble it all and everything too. But first we're going to start off with the template, the design, whatever we want to call it. Okay, so now print and cut has a size limitation of 9 1/4 wide and 6 3/4 high. So what I did is I put a white rectangle up here, and it's 9 1/4 inches wide and 6 3/4 inches high. Now keep in mind, whatever color you change this box is what color it will print. So leave it white if you don't want to waste your ink. I personally have an Epson Eco Tank, so I don't mind using it as a color or printing a lot, but it's up to you guys what you want to do. I will link all of the products that I used in this video in the description. If there's anything that I missed, please let me know and I'll grab you a link. Okay, so now what I do is I take my rectangle and I go up to my X and Y coordinates up here. Might be a little hard for you guys to see. Let me and I set them both to 0. That is the easiest way I find to work, because then I can put all of the measurements in where I need them, and I know it's all lined up perfectly without having to do too much math. I've already done the math for you guys, so you guys really just have to follow my template here. So the chip bag, the first thing I did was take my chip bag. I put it on my self-healing mat, my Cricut self-healing mat, and it measures about 4 inches. It's, once you're gonna kind of crinkle it up to put it into the wrap anyway, so it's about 4 inches. So I took that amount and I deducted it from 9 1/4. And then I cut that in half to get my 2 side panels here. So in order for this to all be even, I went over to my shapes, grabbed a score line, and I changed it to 6 3/4 in height. And I put it at the X coordinate of 2.625. Then I duplicated that, and the Y coordinate of 0, And then I duplicated that, and I put this score line at 6.625 for the X coordinate and 0 for the Y coordinate. And then everything is nice and even for me. Then I went ahead and I wanted to make my nutrition facts. I like to do all of the kind of smaller stuff first, and then I add my design. This is just the basic stuff. Now for this, if you use all Cricut images and fonts, you can go ahead and share that. But you can also do save and save as, and then you can start a new chip bag template just based off of this, which is what I do, because then I don't have to recreate all of this, because quite frankly, it's kind of a pain in the butt to retype and resize all of those little things. So I'm going to zoom in on my nutrition facts. You can go ahead and you can write whatever you want in there. You can have as many lines as you like, as few lines as you like. This is your design. So you do it how you want it. So I'm going to let you guys read that for a second in case you guys want to use that as a guide. And then what I did is I grabbed a shape to create the nutrition fact here. To make it really easy, I grabbed a square. I sized it to 2 1/4 inches wide, and I did it at 4 inches high, and I'm going to change it to black. Okay, I'm going to zoom out for you guys now. That should have been, you guys can pause at that point if you want to and read that. Okay, so then I duplicated this one to give me, I'm going to get that outline here. Instead of sizing all individual lines and welding, I'm just going to slice, make it easy on all of us. So I'm going to reduce this just by 1/4 of an inch. So 2 by 2 inches wide and 3.75 inches high. I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go up to the align tool here. I'm going to align, center horizontally, and then center vertically, and then I'm going to slice them. I'm going to take out everything that I don't want and leave me with a nice little square or rectangle. And then I like to go up to my fill and change it to print, because this is what you're going to get for your final, this is how it's going to look when it prints. It takes away those cut lines, and I really like to do that especially with my text as I'm working, because it shows you exactly, I'll show you quickly. I have this all welded together so it's one piece instead of bogging it down with a bunch of text. So it's already set to print. If I go and change it to no fill, you can see how it looks really, really, really thick. I'll zoom in so you can see the difference. And then when I go and change it to print, it looks much more legible. So I prefer to do that from the beginning. Always change everything to print. That way I know what it's going to look like and I don't think my words are too muddled or too tight. This way, if they are, I can see it and I know beforehand. Okay, so then what you'll do is just grab another square over here from our shapes. And again, this is all you. So whatever you want, however you think. I'm going to change this again to print, so I know. And then you can just size this. And remember, we did it at 2 inches. And you just keep adding these in, duplicating to make it easier so they're all even, adding in your text, filling it in however you want. And then I selected it all and I welded it together. That is, when you have a lot of text, sometimes it can bog your project down or make it run a little slow. So this way you have it all as one solid piece instead of every single individual letter being seen as a layer. So I like to weld it for this case. Okay, now for the little barcode, I just went into Access Images and typed in barcode. Quite a few of them come up, but most of them you can see are, you know, they have things attached to them. So all I did was I'll just grab this little football one, and then I can take a shape. I'm going to slice off that rectangle. Or sorry, I'm going to slice off that football. Okay, delete everything that I don't want. And then I'm left with a perfect little barcode. Size that down how you want it. And place it, again, wherever you want it. This is your design. Okay, so then what I do is I already kind of designed this. So on this side, I just put thank you for coming to my party. I'm just using all Cricut fonts right now for you guys, but you can change it however you want. This is just easier for me to have everything typed out and done. So I'm just going to pretend that this is for my son's birthday. I have a Pokemon image that I'm going to add in here. Now I already designed pretty much the same thing I'm showing you and printed it just so I didn't have to run upstairs and grab it. We can just do this all in one shot. So my design might be a tiny bit different, but I'm using the same exact thing. I'll show you guys quickly. I already have it printed. So I'm just going to show you guys, just pick some images, add a design. For text, I put 8. That's how old my son will be. I did a Pokemon font. They have it under font. Again, I added a link for you guys. The same link will download both the solid and the hollow. So I did this and I'll change it to red. And again, you can go up to fill, change it to print. Takes away those cut lines just to give you a better visual. And I just typed in Poke Party. Oh. Change it to yellow and remove those cut lines. We're changing it to print. And all I did was curve it a little bit. Now I like to curve it a little bit before, and then I'll size it down. Again, this might be different than what I already printed because I didn't take anything specific. Now, one more thing that I want to mention before we set this all up to print and cut is I'm using the cheddar jalapeno chips, and if I'm using a variety pack, I like to let people know what kind of chip they're getting. I usually, when I send it to my kids' school, I do just the same thing. I did last year, I think I did the nacho Doritos. I sent all nacho Doritos. That way no one had to argue and fight, and the teacher didn't have to worry about it. I like his teacher too much to do that. So I just grabbed a Google image for Cheetos crunchy jalapeno cheddar chips, size that down, and I add it here so it's on the back. And you can also put it on this side, make it a little bigger if it's harder to read, but it's up to you guys. That way you just know what you're getting, because you don't want, if you're using a variety pack, most chip bags that come in the 1 ounce size are a variety pack. So that is just something that I like to add. Okay, so now we want to set this up to print. Because we are using score lines, we have to set it up a little bit differently than just flatten. So I grabbed both of my score lines in my layers panel, and I'm going to group them. This is just going to make it a little bit easier for me. I'm going to hide them now. I can go up here to select all and flatten. That's going to compress my image for print and then cut. And then I'm going to unhide my group, and I'll go up to arrange and send it to the front, select all, and attach. So then you would click make it, send it to your printer. I'm just going to show you guys, I already printed, so I'll switch over to my other project so we can, my other tab. Okay, so what you'll do is send to printer. Very important, always leave your bleed on. I always click the system dialog and then click print. The system dialog is going to open your printer settings for you to change here. And that is exactly what you want to do every time, as far as I'm concerned. So I can go to preferences and I can change everything here. So I always change the quality to high so I get the best quality. I'm going to cancel out of all of this because I'm not printing this one. And I'm going to go over to my other tab that I already did print. And I'm going to select my maker. Now, I already sent my image to the printer, as I already showed you guys. So we're going to wait for my maker to pick this up, and there is a copy paper setting. I think I have it saved because I use it for infusible ink when I use my laser copy paper too, so it's favorited. So copy paper, 20 pounds is what I use. Now, if you already printed like I did, up here, usually, I already sent it to printer. It knows it printed, but usually if it doesn't, there's a little box over here on the right hand side that will say already printed, and you can click that and it will let you pick your materials and your tools and everything. Okay, so I have my single scoring wheel already in, and then we'll switch out the fine point blade after. One important thing that you want to remember is how your image is laid out here is how it needs to be laid out on your mat. So see, my Pokemon are on the left side. You have to make sure it matches because it's going to read the registration marks and it's going to make sure it does everything in the correct place. So if you've never done print and cut before, that's important to know. So I already have my single scoring wheel loaded in my maker. If you don't have a maker, you use the scoring stylus. So I linked all of these in the description of the video too. I will also include all of the dimensions for you and what X and Y coordinates they need to be at. That way, if you just want to check the description after you've already watched the video just to get the dimensions, they'll be right there for you guys. So you don't have to keep rewinding and pausing and everything like that. It'll all be ready for you. So I'm going to show you a few things while this scans and does its thing. I use Tombow permanent adhesive. It's double-sided tape. This little thing opens up and it just rolls right on. It's very cool. I linked for you guys to buy this and the refill cartridges. You can just pop this off and this will be your refill. and you pop it on a new one, so you don't have to keep buying them. You can buy the refill pack. They sell them at Michael's, and it's pretty cheap with a coupon. I'm also going to be using this little crimper tool. It's actually a tool for resealing actual chip bags, but it gives you that kind of lined look you get at the top. This is it, and it will reseal your regular chip bags, but it's just going to give you that look and effect on your paper. So I got this off Amazon. I'll link it for you guys. When I grabbed the link, I saw that the mint was out of stock, but there were a couple other color options. There are little switches on the inside to turn it on, so once we're ready, I'll turn that on to get heated up. When you're doing it with the paper, you really don't need to hold it for long. I'll show you just like a second or two. Okay, so this is all scored and cut for us. So I'm going to, as always with paper, I flip my mat over and I remove my mat from my paper so it doesn't curl up. Usually what I do is just kind of like this. Okay, set that aside. Now the first thing I like to do is go up to my score lines and score them. Now, if you don't want to score, you can just do this by hand, but personally, because I lined my whole design up based on the score lines, I like to leave them as is so everything looks even and neat. Okay, so I did that. Now what I'm going to do is I want to place my chip bag. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I do it face down. And you're going to kind of want fold that over as much as you can, because again, this is going to be a really, really tight fit. So what I do first is I take my Tombow and I go around the whole entire perimeter of this. This is important because I found when sealing these that if you don't do it in a more specific order, it's really difficult to close. Again, this is based on the print and cut size. A lot of people will say, why do you do that? I personally would rather my Cricut cut it than me have to go and do it all. So that's just preference. It's up to you guys how you want to do things. This tape is, again, permanent, double-sided, pretty sticky, so be careful when you're putting this down. So what you're going to want to do, again, make sure that's folded up, and we're going to bring in our two sides, our long parts here together, and we're going to... It's going to get a little loud, so I'm going to tell you guys first. We're just going to line this edge and this edge up and press it together. Now, if you want to kind of do this a little bit beforehand, even it out, you can. And then the reason we put the tape on the bottom already is because you can see it would be a little bit difficult to go back and add tape now. So I always just press at the bottom first. This is a tight fit. It definitely is, so keep that in mind. Okay, and then I can kind of push this down a little bit and do the top. You guys see me? All right. Alrighty. So you can see my little, so you can see that there. You can see the nutrition label, my little thank you for coming, and your design. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, heat this up, and all I'm going to do is just for like a quick 2 seconds, I'm going to crimp down on the top and the bottom. And I usually do it from each side because this doesn't have a really big platen. So I usually do it from each side. This might be a little harder to see on the white paper. Last time I did, I printed all blue. I'm just doing like 2 seconds. This still isn't really hot, so you're not seeing it as well either. Okay. All right, so it's harder to see on the white paper, and because this isn't too hot yet. Yeah, it's not too hot yet, so I'll give it another second and I'll go over it just to show you guys. It just gives it that cool effect so it looks like an actual chip bag. Now these are really fun, again, for parties, for any occasion. And you can also do juice box wraps or Capri Sun labels. You can do the same thing for fruit snacks. Just, again, take your measurements and do it all out. I like to, that way you can measure it. I guess you don't have to be as bougie as I am, but I like to do that for my kids just because I'm crafty and I can, and if you are a fellow crafter, then you understand.
I'm not sure.
Oh, let me set up Alexa. Okay, so now that's a little hotter, you can see this a little better. I'll get you a better angle so you can see. All right, hope you enjoyed.